Weather alerts as we come on the air. Dangerous storms from Texas to Pennsylvania. 5 reported tornadoes in 4 states. At least 2 deaths blamed on the storms, including a woman drowning crossing a flooded road. The system moving east to start the week. Witnessing the horror.
There's nothing we could have done.
News tonight about that deadly plane crash, killing 11 in Hawaii. Some family members watching as the plane went down. The NTSB now on the scene. Iran's fury, members of parliament chanting death to America. This as ABC News confirms the U.S. launched a cyber attack on Iran, and President Trump saying he's ready to impose new sanctions tomorrow. The race for 2020, Mayor Pete Buttigieg grilled during a town hall meeting back home. Emotions boiling over after a deadly police shooting in South Bend. Pulled from the flames, the ABC News exclusive, the home on fire, a toddler crying for help, her grandmother trapped, a hero police officer kicking in the window, telling us tonight he thought the house was going to blow. And out of control, the hot air balloon coming down in the middle of a crowd, hundreds sent scrambling.
From ABC News, this is ABC World News Tonight.
And good evening. Thanks for joining us on this Sunday. I'm Tom Yamas. And we begin tonight with the deadly summer slam. Destructive storms across the Midwest, flash flooding alerts at this hour. 5 tornadoes reported in 4 states, including this twister tearing across the Texas Panhandle. Powerful flooding pouring through homes looking at that, washing away roads in Anderson, Missouri. A violent thunderstorm canceling a country music festival in Kansas. You can see the crowd scrambling for cover. Severe storm threats tonight from Texas to Kentucky. ABC senior meteorologist Rob Marciano leads us off.
Tonight, powerful storms barreling through the heartland. 5 reported tornadoes across 4 states this weekend. Texas and Colorado getting hit. The storms already blamed for 2 fatalities this weekend. Take a look at this new video. Strong winds snapping a flagpole in Illinois just this afternoon. Winds whipping across that state as well, tearing down the football bleachers at Manford High School. And in Missouri, a flash flood emergency declared there. Torrential rains turning roads into rivers, swamping a local business. Concertgoers in Kansas scrambling to safety as lightning strikes near a country music festival. And we're seeing this dramatic rescue. Officers risking their own lives to save 2 people from a raging river in Kent, Ohio.
She's got to be numb, frozen, scared. Yeah, scared.
One woman falling out of her kayak, desperately holding onto tree branches for 30 minutes before finally being rescued.
And Rob Marciano now joins us on set. Great they were able to get to her there. Now, you're telling us some of these storms are moving east?
They are, and they have strong winds, and obviously the flood threat is real as well. Outflow boundaries here, you see them go through Memphis, Pine Bluff, back through just south of Norman. So a couple of impulses with this mother low that's now coming out of the Rockies, a cold core, and it's got a lot of rain with it. So flood warnings are posted, flood watches as well. And look at all those severe thunderstorm watches from North Texas all the way up the Ohio Valley in through parts of Kentucky. So the storms roll south and east tonight fairly rapidly. We have some strong winds, and again, we're going to have that threat for flooding. And then tomorrow into the Ohio River Valley, Lexington, Cincinnati, upwards into parts of West Virginia. In that warm sectors where we'll see some thunderstorms, and they're going to be dumping some heavy rain, Tom.
A lot of rain on the move. All right, Rob, thank you. Next tonight, the new developments in that deadly plane crash in Hawaii. 11 people killed when their skydiving plane went down just after takeoff, bursting into flames. Some family members helplessly watching from the ground. Witnesses describing the terrifying final moments, and the NTSB is now on the scene amid questions about the plane safety records. ABC Will Carr is in at Oahu.
Tonight, federal investigators are on the scene after that devastating crash that killed 11 people. Some had family members watching in horror on the ground after the flight took off for a sunset skydive when something went terribly wrong.
You heard the motor, the engine of the plane going, and then you heard pop, and then you knew right then.
Rick and Gail Silverson witnessed that fireball explode and raced to the wreckage.
There's nothing we could have done. There was nothing left. There wasn't a sign of anybody in that plane.
Tonight, as we're learning more about the plane's checkered past, for the first time, we're seeing that twin-engine Beechcraft on a flight prior to Friday's crash. According to the NTSB, in 2016, the plane sustained substantial damage on a skydiving flight where the plane stalled and spun, forcing the skydivers to jump out of the plane during the emergency. The pilot recovered before crashing. Nobody was hurt.
When it comes to paying passengers on an airplane, there should be a reasonable assumption of safety.
Friday's crash is the deadliest civil plane crash in the United States since 2011. At least 6 killed worked at the Oahu Parachute Center, all well known in the community.
It just wasn't quite real until I saw it.
Casey Williamson was a videographer. His family says his smile and love for life was contagious. Larry LeMaster was a father. His family posting he was doing what he loved. And Michael Martin, who friends say lived to skydive. Tom, tonight investigators have been combing through that wreckage behind me. One big question they have is how much weight was on the plane. The NTSB just told me that there could be 13 people, including the pilot, on the flight, but they want to know if it was overloaded. Tom.
Will Carr just steps from where that plane went down. All right, Will, thank you. Now to the growing tension between the U.S. and Iran. Members of the Iranian parliament today chanting "Death to America," accusing President Trump and the U.S. of spreading chaos. The president returning to the White House late today, ready to impose new sanctions against Iran starting tomorrow. ABC News confirming the White House approved and the U.S. carried out a cyber attack targeting Iran. ABC's Rachel Scott is at the White House.
Shouts of "Death to America" ringing out in Iran's parliament, a sign the regime will not bow its head. Despite this warning from John Bolton, the president's national security advisor.
Neither Iran nor any other hostile actor should mistake U.S. prudence and discretion for weakness.
And this show of force, the White House quietly carrying out a cyber attack, disabling software on Iranian computer systems used to control rocket and missile launches. That plan in the works for weeks, possibly months. President Trump, though, sending mixed messages, saying he could strike a new deal.
If Iran wants to become a wealthy nation again, become a prosperous nation, we'll call it, "Let's make Iran great again."
But minutes later, not ruling out a military strike.
Mr. President, are you still considering military action with Iran? Is it still on the table?
It's always on the table until we get this solved.
The president breaking from some top advisors, including Bolton and Secretary of State Mike Pompeo, calling off a planned military retaliation for the downing of a U.S. drone with just minutes to spare. Tehran still insisting that drone crossed into Iranian territory. The foreign minister tweeting out these maps with coordinates, claiming to show that drone was over sovereign waters. The Secretary of State blasting the maps as Iranian misinformation. And tonight, with major additional sanctions just hours away, Pompeo signaling the U.S. not backing down either.
The world should know that we will continue to make sure it's understood that this effort that we've engaged in to deny Iran the resources to foment terror, to build out their nuclear weapon system, to build out their missile program, we are going to deny them the resources they need to do that.
All right, Rachel Scott joins us now from the White House North Lawn. And Rachel, we know the U.S. has called for a UN Security Council meeting tomorrow. With those new sanctions going into effect, the world is watching to see what happens here.
Tom, the president is hoping those economic sanctions drive Iran to the negotiating table. But it takes two to make a deal. And so far, the regime has been silent. Today, the vice president said he was not aware of any outreach from Tehran. Tom?
Rachel Scott for us at the White House tonight. Rachel, thank you. To politics now, the 2020 race for president. Mayor Pete Buttigieg confronted with a major test on the national stage. Buttigieg back home, grilled during a tense town hall meeting in South Bend, Indiana. Audience members erupting in raw emotions over a deadly police shooting. The town hall at times teetering on the brink of chaos. Here's ABC's Tara Palmieri.
Get the people that are racist off the streets.
Tonight, an angry and hostile crowd facing presidential candidate and South Bend, Indiana Mayor Pete Buttigieg at a town hall over the shooting of a black man by a white officer. Buttigieg remaining calm while facing the intense crowd.
And I would love to be able to finish. I would love to be able to finish my reply if that's okay.
The shooting happened last Sunday when Officer Ryan O'Neill shot and killed Eric Logan.
Another unit here guy threw a knife at me.
Claiming Logan had a knife and ignored repeated demands to drop it.
50s, one gunshot wound, right side of the abdomen.
But O'Neill never turned his body camera on. In South Bend, it is the officer's discretion as to when to activate them.
While body cameras were implemented across the department, obviously, there is enormous frustration, which I share, that they were not there when we needed them most.
Can we have an officer step over to this area, please?
The community is outraged, claiming African Americans have not been protected from potential police misconduct. Mayor Buttigieg came off the campaign trail and face-to-face with constituents, squarely blaming him. The deceased mother confronting the presidential candidate.
I've been in hell all my life, and y'all ain't doing a damn thing about me or my son or none of these people out here. It's time for you to do something. If you can't do it, step your ass down. And I'm tired of talking now, and I'm tired of hearing your lies. Right. Amen.
We asked Buttigieg about his city's brewing tensions and his leadership.
But you're running on your record, so how can you do that when you have so much division at home and yet you claim you can unify the country?
Well, we've got a lot of challenges at home, and these issues aren't easy. Part of how you earn your paycheck as a mayor is to walk into no-win situations. But we've done a lot of work. We've got a lot of work to do together.
And Tara Palmieri joins us now live in studio. Tara, you were just out there on the campaign trail with Mayor Pete. This is no doubt a critical time for his city, and yet he's also 4 days away from his first primary debate.
That's right, Tom. The timing is not ideal. He also says that he'll pass the case on to the Department of Justice to investigate the shooting, but he says he can't guarantee that they'll actually investigate it. Now, I talked to a campaign source, and they said he still intends to attend the debate. Tom.
All right, Tara Palmieri with some of that new reporting. Tara, thank you, and great to have you here on a Sunday. Next tonight, to the growing concerns over reports of deplorable conditions for hundreds of children living in government migrant holding facilities in the U.S. We're now hearing from a lawyer who visited one center in Texas and a doctor visiting another, describing it as, quote, torture, living in filth, kids, dirty clothes, no soap or toothbrushes. One day after delaying sweeping ICE raids in up to 10 cities, President Trump defending his administration. Here's ABC's Lana Zak.
These images show what inspectors call dangerous and unsanitary conditions at this migrant holding facility for adults in El Paso. But tonight, we're hearing from a doctor and a lawyer who interviewed children at two other Texas Customs and Border Protection centers. They say they witnessed inhumane scenes.
This felt worse than jail.
Dr. Dolly Sevier examined infants and children being held at the Ursula facility in McAllen, Texas, seen in these government handout images last year. Speaking exclusively to ABC News, she describes what she calls akin to torture. Fluorescent lights on 24/7. Many reported no access to basic sanitation and babies drinking from the same unwashed bottles for days.
The conditions at these facilities are placing them at increased risk for infection, disease, and death.
Attorney Lauren Binford, who interviewed children at this facility in Clint, Texas, detailed equally dire conditions. Children left to care for each other.
They're sleeping on concrete blocks. There are open toilets in the room. There is no soap. These children are being held in a completely inappropriate facility.
Last week, federal judges scolded administration attorneys who argued that the conditions are adequate.
I find that inconceivable that the government would say that that is safe and sanitary.
Today, the vice president pressed if the Trump administration is doing enough for the children in its custody.
Aren't toothbrushes and blankets and medicine, basic conditions for kids, aren't they a part of how the United States of America, the Trump administration, treats children?
Well, of course they are, Jake. It's one of the reasons why we continue to call on Congress to give DHS, Customs and Border Protection, additional resources at the border.
The president had this to say.
We're doing a fantastic job under the circumstances.
We asked Customs and Border Protection for a response. They told us that they have limited resources, but that they work to provide the best possible care to everyone in their custody, especially children. And they say that all allegations of civil rights abuses or mistreatment are taken seriously. Tom.
Lana Zak with some of those shocking allegations tonight. Lana, thank you. Overseas now in the new headline tonight involving North Korea. The White House confirming President Trump sent a new letter to Kim Jong-un, North Korea's central news agency releasing an image saying Kim received an excellent letter from the president. No word on what was written, though. Kim quoted as saying he would seriously contemplate the interesting content. And back here at home to the hot air balloon scare in Missouri. The balloon out of control, crash landing into a crowd. Several people knocked to the ground. Here's ABC's Will Reeve.
Tonight, dramatic video of a rogue hot air balloon crashing a town party. The out-of-control balloon hurtling to the ground with passengers on board. Look closely, the pilot in yellow trying to steer at the last second. At one point, you can see Christina Smith's arm hanging down. Spectators at the Hannibal, Missouri bicentennial celebration fleeing for safety. One woman holding a child and pulling another knocked down. One young girl on the ground suffered minor injuries. The rest of those in danger escaping unharmed. A near disaster narrowly averted.
Hannibal, Missouri officials released a statement